Doing a post-commentary today, I've gathered some interesting interactions from playing Battle Boots in Ranked that I think highlight important or critical parts of the game, like this. How is it that I felt so confident going for those options, and why was I able to get away with it? Well, to answer that, let's go one game back, because all that information is present in this short clip. Right away, we're seeing someone who's very eager to get back into the action. They're attacking right after getting hit, they're attacking right after whiffing, and they're fast-falling to get back to the stage. So with that in mind, let's jump ahead once again and see how I put myself in a position to get that crucial first stock. While building up the damage, I know I can likely go for an extra hit at the end of my string right there, since they'll attack right away. And if I space correctly, not like that, I can probably interrupt their side airs. Now here they do a good job of baiting out my end sig, but this is the key moment. If they've shown a tendency to attack at a stun and hold inwards, they'll probably unarmed dare, and I can sneak in an additional hit, maybe even sneak in a knockout by tracking their movement where I wouldn't be able to otherwise. Now things don't always go your way. Sometimes you get a read and sometimes you don't. So maintaining your composure is also very important. That one still hurts to watch because sometimes you just make a mistake and you got to be able to bounce back from that. Remember, I still have a game plan here. I have that inkling that they're going to want to get back into the action as soon as possible. So here I'm going to recover upwards kind of slowly to bait them into thinking they can hit me and then retaliate with a good old killing combo. Next up, we have another example of how previous games can impact the future ones. This one is way more extreme though, but before we get to that, this is going to become a last hit, last stock situation, and I have to maneuver around cannon's lead traps if I even want a chance to take this one. I am one sword downlight away, one cannon downlight away. Likewise, they are one hit away. Luckily, I'm able to get that clutch dodge and take it with that end light, but that's not really what's important, because what I want to highlight here is how you transition from a game like that, last stock, last hit, to one where you might be in a bad spot. Luckily, I'm able to reverse that edge guard right there, and now the Sidra is going to start to get a bit desperate. I know I've done this my fair share of times, not even that. I literally do this all the time, where it's a very, very close game, and then suddenly in the next one I find myself behind, and so I'm like, well, if it was close and everything was even, now that I'm behind, I have to risk everything. Desperate times call for desperate measures, so I'm gonna go for it all. But it's good to remember that every game is a fresh start. Just because the last one was close doesn't mean that this one is going to be too. You still can outplay them on stage, you don't have to go for the biggest risk of all. I mean, you can, sometimes it works out, but you know what I'm trying to say. This segment is probably my favorite in here, against this Luke, against this Cross, because it's the perfect example of adaptation. What do people mean when they say adapt to your opponent? What do I mean when I say that? Well, right away we can see they're completely outspacing and outplaying me. I'm getting a bit lazy with my approaches and everything is a bit obvious. I'm always attacking with the same timing, always from the same distance, from the same spacing, and rightfully getting destroyed for it. And now I'm feeling a bit lost. So what do? I take a deep breath to myself and I change things up. I'm chasing them down into the corners rather than just ooga booga attack, and that gauntlet sidelight right there quite literally changed the entire course of the match. It's so subtle, but this stuff makes all the difference. This is why Brawlhalla is very deceptively difficult. You look at that move and it seems no different from anything I did in the first stock, but it's a world apart. Half a second in timing changed the match. Why is it such a big deal? Well, what I was doing before didn't work, and fighting games are really games of the smallest of frames, the smallest of moments, and so I changed things up. I changed up one of those small moments, a hair later or a hair earlier in timing, and it's like you're a different player. And now, because I was very slightly mixing up those timings, the predictive moves they were putting out that stopped me in my tracks become much less reliable, and I'm able to get away with a lot more. They're gonna do a gauntlet end light right here that I think demonstrates that very well, where in the first stock, I probably just run into it, but in this one, I can get a kill off of it. Those early game moments can really influence how people react to a situation later on in the game, and maybe it's just instinctual, they don't realize it. Right here, I'm rushing down this Diana with a flurry of grounded attacks. Keep that in mind, grounded attacks. Okay, I'm taking note of that. So next time, when I get hit in the air or when I get hit on the ground and they're just rushing me down with a chase dodge, maybe I jump, because I don't want to get hit by those grounded attacks again. Right here, I was able to take advantage of that panic. Perhaps it's also because they were vulnerable, they didn't have that many jumps to begin with, but in paying attention to those past moments, I was able to take advantage of it in the present. Something to keep in mind though is I could be entirely wrong about any of these assertions. I mean, look at me, look, this is not the mark of a supreme gamer, okay? And maybe these past moments changed nothing and I'm reading way too far into it, and that could very well be true. It might actually be more likely that that's true. But what's important is they got me thinking about options, what the opponent is likely to do, what I should do to counter that. And I capitalize on whatever gut feelings those were to try something out. And that's really what Ranked is great for. Winning, losing, it's whatever. We all win, and we also all lose. You know, Ranked is more of a fun training ground where you get the opportunity to play against a variety of people and playstyles and experiment with new things, which with 8-minute queues. It's part of why I don't play it all too often. I can get that elsewhere too, to varying effects, of course, but every now and then is great, and you can learn new things every time. Case in point, this clip right here. I am the worst player in the world at getting hit by weapon tosses. I get hit by every single one, and you're going to see how I adjust a bit. You're also going to see I am mashing every button on my keyboard. I'm going a bit too ham. Look, I'm having fun. A blast with a new weapon. I'm goofing a bit. There's a great moment at the end here where I'm going to knock the Hattori off stage, and she's going to do something very common, which is toss her weapon up to protect the recovery. What I do is I stay as close as possible to the weapon throw, and then the moment I see a chance, I take it. Again, I usually get hit by those every time, so I steer clear, and then I probably let them touch the wall. But I'm like, hey, I see an opportunity, why not give it a try? And guess what? This match has a bit more juice that we can extract, because this is a critical moment right here that's going to factor into the end result. They succeeded. They hit me with the GC side sig. They knocked me out. And so they could be thinking, hey, this worked before, so maybe it'll work again. Had they shown a GC end sig instead, I probably don't go for this ground pound. And I definitely don't if it's a last stock game. But with the info I had, I went for a gamble, and it paid off. Now, this one with the Kaya, I'm really happy with this one. It's going to be very quick at the end, so you might have to look closely, but this is a last stock situation. Right here, I'm just trying to bait out a high bow recovery so I can spike with Ensig. I get the Ensig, I don't get the spike, but what I then look for is a reverse Nair, because if you hit with the very end of Nair, you're going to be out of it faster, but your opponent is still going to get hit with the same amount of stun. So if you hit with the very tail end, I was theory crafting, like maybe you can combo off of it easier, and that seemed to be the case. I don't know what this is. I don't know why I saved this. Is this just like, I think I just like the animation of Boots backdash, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, that's it. I just like that I flip backward and forward. Okay, we're gonna move on. This is an example of how you can track your opponent's movement. You notice where they're jumping, where they think they want to go, and I'm gonna pick up the battle boots because I'm like, oh, battle boots, you can get a lot of early damage off it because they have the big early strings. No, this is a mistake. I'm gonna show you a clip later on where it's gonna be relevant. I'm getting like 3 reads in a row here, and they're barely in the yellow. Barely. With that said, though, battle boots have a very good KO power. You're gonna see right here, they're out of jumps. They're out of jumps right here, and so I catch them early. I'm going way out, and it's extremely worth it to chase them because even if they save that recovery, they're forced to touch the wall eventually. But check this out. This is in stark contrast to the battle boots from earlier. Early damage buildup with 8 strength gauntlets, I'm getting about the same amount of reads, and instead of barely being yellow, it's significantly into the orange. So that's pretty crazy. But regardless, I really like this clip because it's a clear demonstration and a clear example of a movement bait. I'm gonna jump up high into the air and make the Knicks think that coming back on stage is fine, and the moment I hit the ground, I'm dashing forward and getting the knockout. Then later on, I was able to turn their edge guard into mine. No help from the dropped Sair, by the way, because if you understand what they're likely to go for, you can sometimes fit in an attack. And especially if they're using jumps to chase you off stage, that means they're not gonna have as many to recover back. That's sort of what happens here. This is a last stock situation, and I'm behind by a significant margin. You can see even with that combo, I'm slacking. And here, I make a big mistake. I didn't land when I did that ground pound. I'm out of jumps here. So I fake that I'm coming into the stage, and then I reel backward. But the moment they use that down sig, I knew they were hungry. And when people are hungry, they tend to panic a bit more. So all I did was enter their range, they jumped, and when they're out of jumps, it's much easier to edge guard. And edge guards are a very variable part of the game. Things can turn on their head all of a sudden. I almost got hit by that gauntlet ground pound, and suddenly I'm a stock up. And other times, it's a bit scary. This is again about maintaining composure for both of us on both of our ends, because I'm about to die and they are about to be put in the same situation that took their last stock. So what do you do in that situation? Maybe you rush back on stage because you don't want to be there again, and that rushing ends up getting you killed. Keeping a level head is very important. This is the first time I ever recovered back to the stage like that, and it's in a last stock situation. I mixed things up. I never went high, and now I did. And so even though my gameplay wasn't the cleanest, just by keeping my cool, I was able to eke out a game. Finally, to close up shop here, we've got this last game, which I think is a pretty funny one. Sometimes you're not on your A game, sometimes you're not even on your B game, sometimes you might not even be on your C game, and you walk into a bunch of SIGs in a row. Fatigue might be haunting me a little bit, but fatigue also might be helping me a little bit, because I think they only went for that slide charge because they had hit the previous SIGs in the past, and certainly this down SIG is a remnant of the ones in the previous stock, and I was able to sneak in that SIG and potentially get a KO. Did I get a KO? Don't ask me anything ever again, okay? That's a terrible question. That's a bad... What I wanted to say is that you're not always going to be at peak, and being more consistent isn't necessarily about getting better. It's about making yourself better when you're worse, which might sound a bit weird, but that's how it's always made sense to me. Which might be why I'm really inconsistent. But look, I finally got this podium from 7 months ago.